Dear guests, let us welcome on stage Mr. Stefan Junestrand, CEO and co-founder of Grupo Tecma Red, Spain. Mr. Stefan Junestrand.
My name is Stefan Junestrand. I hold a PhD in architecture, and I dedicated all my professional career into integrating technology into the built environment. So let me share with you my vision how to apply blockchain into smart cities. The fact is that today 50% of the world's population lives in cities, and in year 2050 there will be 60%. But also it's true that in Europe there are countries where 80% live in cities. And there are huge challenges for the cities. They have to improve the efficiency in operations, increase transparency. They have to fight corruption. They have to handle the healthcare for an increasing population of older people. We have to reach the sustainability goals. And we have to develop a more democratic citizenship, among other things. So, until now, neither any organizational model nor technology has been able to solve these problems. But blockchain, though, seems to be a technology that has the possibility to offer improvements to all these issues. But why blockchain? Well, as we heard along this morning, blockchain offers transparency, immutability, and cybersecurity, which is crucial. But also, it's important to know that blockchain, although we speak a lot about the economy, in blockchain we move tokens. So tokens, that they're sort of values that can represent economic values, physical assets, services, rights, for example, voting rights. And the important thing is that these tokens are not like money, because they can be programmed and give properties for conditional use, for when, how, by whom, and in which circumstances they can be used. And together with the smart contracts that we've spoken about this morning, that is a functionality of blockchain that allows programming contracts that are self-executing and that actually brings and takes away the middleman, we can get rid of those and be much more efficient. And as we've seen during the last years, blockchain has radically changed the financial sector, and now it's also changing many parts of the traditional industries. And the clue with blockchain, and the most interesting thing from the smart cities perspective, is that it's most useful where there is low trust, when there is value for decentralized information, where we need cybersecurity, transparency, automated transactions, and data analytics. In that context, it's easy to understand that blockchain could be very valuable for smart cities. But then, how can we apply blockchain for smart cities? Well, the governance in smart cities is carried out in 4 ways: democratic processes, state bureaucracy, public services, and regulation. We will not look at each one of these in depth. Democratic processes. How can we apply blockchain? Well, first of all, in the voting process. We can vote electronically, but if we additionally add blockchain, we can add functionalities as to see if our vote has been registered, for whom it has been registered. We can vote for different aspects in different areas. We can rank alternatives, and we can vote, for example, conditionally. If this person gets 15%, I want to give him my vote. If he gets less, my vote goes to that person. And we can even, if there are 5 parties, say, I like 2 parties, I give 60% of my vote to one and 40% to another. Smart participation is crucial to engage with the citizens today, which is getting more and more difficult. So many people, especially young people, feel that they're not connected to the governments and the cities, and they don't form part of the decision-making. So we need to improve those platforms. One is the smart participation. A lot of platform for smart participation does exist, but they're mainly not, normally not blockchain-based, which means that when one government comes in, they create the platform, it's used, but when they move out, it's so easy to erase the information. If we do this on blockchain, distributed, it belongs to the citizens, and it will be there forever, or at least for as long time as people participate. Other more dramatic changes can also be made, and liquid democracy is just one example of how to improve democracy in society today and make people participative during the whole election periods, not just once every 4th year. And liquid democracy is a model that mixes the best of representative democracy and direct democracy, but does it online, digitally, and is also a framework where many parties have experimented with blockchain. The second area, state bureaucracy. Is there anything more boring and heavy than state bureaucracy? I don't think so. But if we apply blockchain, we can do really cool things. In state bureaucracy, it's mainly the basic functionalities of blockchain that we use. Transparency, immutability, and cybersecurity is what we look for. And of course, smart contracts. There are cities around the world that are actually trying to be run on blockchain, digital governments. We have the examples this afternoon, but we know Dubai and many other countries are moving forward to a digital administration. And the more they can put on blockchain, the more transparent they will be, and the more people will be able to trust in their governments. Identity is another issue that is huge. We heard it from this morning, many of these problems and the solutions. But we really need to solve the problem with identities. People move around the world. The refugees come to Europe or to other places without a personal ID. The IDs belong to the nations and not to the persons. I think really we need to work, and there are really good solutions, like examples from the United Nations and other private initiatives, also private initiatives where they try to give back the identity to the person and based upon blockchain, which means that it can't be erased. Taxes, crucial for the economy of the cities and the nations. Taxes, there are many experimentation with and tryouts and actual projects with collecting taxes or registered taxes, if they're paid, if they're not paid, when they're paid, and by whom they're paid around the world. It's a magnificent platform to apply blockchain. Accounting, the same. In some cities, there are trust. David has spoke this morning when I had a call with him like half a year ago, and I had written an article. He said, I've written that there's a problem with trust in the public government. He said, there's no problem. There's no problem with trust in public government. I said, come on. No, here in Sweden, okay, I live in Spain, so it's different. So the trust we have to establish, we have to make this transparent and let people actually see what is done, and make sure there's no manipulation of the data. Digital currencies will form probably very, very soon a part of the public economy. Cities, nations will issue their own tokens, will issue their own economies, and handle things yet in a way we don't know exactly how it works, but we have to try it out, and if it's support from the European Union, for example, much better. Land and title registry. This is the same thing. David said, there's no problem with land registry. Sweden, we haven't been in war for 300 years. No, but there are other places in the world where it's continuously war. The registers are still on paper. If there is a war, they can burn up. The computers are centralized with information. They can be erased. So the property registration is exactly one of the most valuable assets that we have in life. And we need to make sure that even there is a war, there's a revolution in our countries, the properties still will belong to us, and that we can prove that. Environment. The environmental issues are discussed so much, and they're so important. But the environmental issue also an issue of manipulation. Some governments and some cities, they publish some data, and some data is transparent and open data, but other is not. I personally believe that this is one of the most magnificent starting points for blockchain is to register, for example, climate data, register the air quality, water quality, and so on. So it's a good starter, a low-hanging fruit, and a big win and quick wins for this kind of application when we look for solutions for blockchain within smart cities. Registration of titles and education, so important. Work is being done in Europe. Today we can buy a master degree and a PhD online for 10, 20 euros. So what we have to do is that we have to demonstrate that the real titles are real and the false ones are not valid. So blockchain there is a trust issue that will work very, very well. Urban planning is another thing. As an architect, you know, you have a project, you present your plans, they start to move the soil and start to building, and then once you started, it's impossible to prove what was there from the beginning. But if we register land with the GIS technology and so on, we have the coordinates, heights, and we have a map of every moment before the building and after the building that will bring a lot of trust and solve so many issues regarding real estate and land use. The third area, and maybe the most interesting one, is about public services. Public services we use, of course, and there's a value with the immutability, the cybersecurity, and the transparency. But I personally think that the biggest value in the public services that are carried out by the governments in collaboration with the private sectors, that we can use what we have spoken about earlier as a token economy. A token economy would open up possibilities to be much more efficient, a better distribution of our wealth, etc. And the functionality of a token economy is actually rather simple. Instead of, when the governments do their budget, instead of handing out money for schools, for health, for education, and so on, they distribute and hand out tokens. Tokens that are not just a simple money, but they are programmed for the exact use by whom, for what, in what circumstances they can be used. For example, a token for school books can only be used during the period, during that school year. It can be used after. It can only be used by the family. It can be sold or traded. Tokens for example, health can only be used by the person that actually have to go to the gym or had to go to the doctor, or the medicine had to be bought by that person. So it's a really good way to distribute wealth because it's controlled. And once they are distributed, they are consumed within the ecosystem based upon the token economy, where we use the distribution to the family, for example, a social token in this case for buying food. And they go to the grocery store and they pay with their app, which is based on the token. The app is transferred to the smart contract. The smart contract returns the token to the government, and the government pays automatically in real time the smart contract, which pays the store, and the food is delivered to the person. So there's no human interaction within that one. And the best thing with this is that during this trip, during this journey with all this kind of consumption and distribution and use of this money or the tokens, we can track every single move during that journey. So we get extremely high quality data and well structured. So we can then apply data analytics, machine learning, etc. on that data, and we can find new patterns, for example, of use that are impossible to understand or even detect by a human. We can learn where it's worth to spend money. For example, preventive healthcare. It's really worth a lot of money to spend on preventive healthcare. But we don't know where it's the best investment. Maybe it's good investment to spend on women that are between 35 and 45. But if you spend it on men that are overweight and will get diabetes when they're 65 to 75, it's just to throw away the money if they will give them a gym card that they will never use. So we can also detect vulnerable groups. We can detect vulnerable groups and individuals if we want to, because we want to help them and personalize the services to them, which is, at the end, the best kind of services that are personalized. And the benefits are huge, huge saving of the public money and also a better service for the citizens. This is, for example, within healthcare, which is consuming even more and more and more money. Okay, people are getting older, they're getting worse conditions and so on. So we need to help them. But there's to continue with the current solution, it's not possible. Education, for example. Now we don't go to school from when we are 7 or whatever until we're 18. But there's lifelong learning. We have to adapt and push people to learn. We have to give them incentives to learn, and we can do that with the token economy. The social welfare also, we have to distribute money because there are people that are vulnerable, they don't have any income and so on. But we have to detect money and know where they're going and know what they're used for, and that they're actually used by the right person. They're not used by somebody else, a family member that is actually abusing that kind of person's vulnerability. The last area is the regulation. The way that the public sector can actually work within the cities is the regulated markets, okay? So those are actually money. The biggest one, I would say, where most blockchain projects are applied right now, except for the financial one, is the energy sector. You can do so much with energy, and that's actually one of the biggest challenges also in society today to drive towards a more sustainable world. So, for example, there are so many, you probably read about them, there's so many projects where you can do, for example, distributed energy generation, which is so much more efficient than to generate in one point and transport, etc. So there are communities, like there are over 100 communities all around the world that are using actually blockchain platforms to register the energy that they generate, the individual families, and the energy that they consume, and the energy that they distribute between the blue level you can see here. Within the microgrid, they distribute and have the internal economy based upon tokens, buying and selling energy. And when there's too much energy, they can also sell it to the general electrical system or buy from there. But these kind of microgrids is a very, very efficient way to handle energy. Mobility is another huge area where there's so many actors. We're facing a change from private car ownership towards mobility solutions and transport solutions that are a mixed model transport that doesn't have anything to do with this. And we also need there to be transparent. The public services, but the private services also that are providing, we have to demonstrate that we actually leave the bus terminals in time, that we do our work, etc. So blockchain is used. I've seen some examples. I saw one example in Mexico where the bus is registered every time it stops. Is registered on blockchain to make sure that it actually follows the timetables that are scheduled. And one of the biggest issues in general that we're facing is the climate change. And there's an important part, there is the move towards a circular economy. So I would say not only to track the supply chain, but to track the whole life cycle of products from where they are taken from the initial source, how they are used, reused, etc. It's a bigger challenge than just the supply chain, but I would say that that's the next step that we have to face. Okay, so like a conclusion. City governments around the world, they are all suffering huge social, economic, and environmental challenges. Blockchain is a technology that seems to be used in a way that we can possibly solve many of these issues. So I think that blockchain applied to smart cities really offer very promising solutions. Thank you so much to the organization for this excellent event. I really enjoyed it. It's unique in its character, and it's been a pleasure to be able to share my knowledge with you here. Thank you so much for your attention, and we see you around.